AI voice generation and cloning seems to be progressing by leaps and bounds, like many other AI-related products these days. It can be hard to keep up with the whole scene, but my interest in this is mostly just as a curiosity, although I have some thoughts of perhaps using it from time to time on my YouTube videos. But more on that later. A service I have used a few times in the past is ElevenLabs, which seems to be one of the more well-known options in this field. Another product I recently took a quick look at was the wonderfully named BeepBooply. Both offer a free option where you have a monthly allowance of characters, meaning words that you can generate for free, and you can pick from a pretty large selection of male and female voices for your text-to-voice needs. Some of these voices also have quite convincing non-US accents, and I find it fascinating to go through the different voice samples. Both products are still under active development, with additional features becoming available from time to time. The paid subscription tiers for both offer various options as far as the amount of text you can process and the additional features that you have available. For example, the ability to utilize better quality voice samples, or to allow you to use the generated samples commercially, and so on. As of this recording, BeepBooply does not currently appear to offer voice cloning, at least not that I could find. However, it does seem to provide simpler ways to edit the voice generation to produce pauses and so on. From my initial listening, the better quality voices on BeepBooply seem to be on par with those of ElevenLabs, which are pretty darn good. ElevenLabs does offer voice cloning with two options, instant and professional. Both of these require a paid subscription in order to use that feature. From the ElevenLabs site. I have actually used AI-generated text-to-speech a couple of times in my YouTube videos, mostly for reading quotes and the like. The current technology is very good with quite realistic sounding voices, and the interpretation of written text is usually surprisingly on point, with correct emphasis and so on. I should say that I do currently have a basic subscription with ElevenLabs, which allows me to use generated content online. I also tried their instant voice cloning, which is included in my basic plan. My thought was possibly to use my cloned voice from time to time on YouTube, if I had a cold or something or just couldn't find a quiet place at the time to make a decent recording. As a rule, I don't really like it when others use obvious text-to-speech for their narration, but I realize the need at times. If you are trying to reach an audience that has a hard time with your accent, for example, and I know it's hard to make usable recordings sometimes when the dog is farting nearby or the dishwasher is going. Anyway, I tried the instant voice cloner and it was indeed pretty much instant. I provided a recorded sample of about 1 minute of me blathering on, as I do, and it came back with something that sounds like, well, this is what it sounds like. On my way down to the old church, I stopped again to look at the willow on the other side of the pond. It seemed like an old friend, perhaps one that had seen better days, although was still around to share this day with. As I gazed at the old tree, I realized my cheek was wet, and I self-consciously wiped away an unwelcome tear. What an old fool I had become, I thought, and resumed my walk, head down and not looking back. As you can probably tell, there is no remnant of a Scottish accent in there, which I rather expected. The timbre and general quality of the voice is pretty good, though. It sounds like my voice in that regard, at least I think it does. Here I am, reading the same text for comparison. On my way down to the old church, I stopped again to look at the willow on the other side of the pond. It seemed like an old friend, perhaps one that had seen better days, although was still around to share this day with. As I gazed at the old tree, I realized my cheek was wet, and I self-consciously wiped away an unwelcome tear. What an old fool I had become, I thought, and resumed my walk, head down and not looking back. In order to get an actual clone, including my weird neither one thing nor the other accent, I would need to use ElevenLabs professional voice cloning, which costs more. Not unreasonable since it sounds like there is a fair bit of processing involved, but I don't quite feel like committing into the extra monthly cost. Something else may come up where I can get a good clone of my voice for less money, But as I mentioned before, all this is a hobby for me anyway, and I'm not that worried about it. There's actually a built-in feature in recent iPhones that can run iOS 17 called Personal Voice, which allows you to create a clone of your voice and store it on the phone. It's intended more as an accessibility feature, but it just shows the sort of thing is becoming readily available. Lastly, if you want to enjoy an odd but sometimes enjoyable application of this voice cloning technology, you can check the links below for examples of Freddie Mercury and Frank Sinatra apparently singing unfamiliar songs. There are a lot of these floating around, and most are varying degrees of weird or just plain bad, but there are a few well done ones, and a couple of which I have noted below. Hey, thank you for watching and for listening, and do check out the links below, and we'll see you next time.